I woke up with one thing on my mind: water. My tongue felt dry and coarse in my mouth, so I made my way to the kitchen for a glass of refreshing water. I ran the tap and held the glass under the stream of water. I took a sip, and then another, and another. Still not feeling refreshed, I refilled the glass. Once, then twice more. My mouth still felt dry, almost as if I hadn't drunk anything at all. Water. I need water. I held the cup in my hand for a while longer, before placing it down and grabbing my keys. I stared at the keys, wondering why I had picked them up, before deciding to drive down to the shops and get a bottle of water. I needed milk anyways, so the trip wouldn't be a waste. As I left, I noticed that my normally quiet street was for some reason very busy. Anywhere I looked, I could see people leaving their houses and getting into their cars. I headed to the T-junction at the end of my little estate. Left made its way to the highway, stretching over many hundreds of kilometers, while right headed to the main street, with all of the local shops. I turned left. Water. I continued to drive forwards. I had no destination, but the journey was clear enough, and so I kept the car moving. For hours I drove, and when the interstate got so queued up that traffic came to a standstill, I got out and walked. I was not alone. I could look in any direction and see a large amount of people, old and young, with families and without, heading in the same direction I was going. And I could tell we were all thinking the same thing: water. I continued walking in the mass of humanity, staying completely silent just like everyone else. After all, what more was there to say? After a couple of hours, I finally ended up where I knew I needed to be: the beach. The waves were thrashing themselves against the sand before retreating back into the bowels of the ocean from where they came. The wind was strong, and the clouds indicated a coming storm, but I had one thing on my mind: water. I took a step forward, and so did everyone else. I made my way closer to the waves and decided to walk into them, enjoying the sharp sensation of cold water wash over my legs. Go, deeper. I continued walking forwards, the water splashing higher against my body as I progressed. Deeper. Let the waves envelop you. The water was up to my neck, and so I took a breath and went under, the current now pushing me out further to sea. Deeper. I opened my mouth and let the water fill my lungs, causing my vision to blacken, but I still made my way forwards, guided by the sea. Go, ever deeper. I opened my eyes, feeling a sense of confusion and dread as I found myself alone in a dark and unfamiliar place. My body felt heavy and sluggish, and my limbs ached as I tried to move them. Panic surged through me as I realized that I couldn't remember how I got here or what had happened. As I struggled to stand, I could hear the distant sound of waves crashing against rocks. I stumbled towards the noise, my eyes gradually adjusting to the darkness. The waves grew louder as I approached, until I finally emerged onto a rocky shore. The moon was full, casting an eerie glow over the landscape. I shuddered as I took in the scene before me. The beach was littered with debris and wreckage. The water was murky and dark, and the air was thick with the stench of decay. I struggled to surface, feeling a force pulling me down. Panic set in as I realized that I was no longer in control of my body. I tried to scream for help, but only gurgling sounds escaped my throat as I was dragged further and further into the depths. I saw shadows moving around me, their features distorted by the murky water. My lungs burned with the need for air, and I knew that I was going to die. The darkness closed in around me, and I felt cold, clammy hands gripping me tightly. I tried to fight back, but my body was weak, and I was losing consciousness. I could feel myself being dragged into a cavernous opening in the sea floor, surrounded by writhing, slimy tendrils. As I was pulled deeper into the darkness, I realized that I was not alone. The shadows moved around me, whispering in a language I could not understand. I heard laughter, but it was not the laughter of humans. It was the cackling, gurgling sound of something ancient and malevolent. I knew that I was going to die, but I refused to go quietly. I fought with all my strength, lashing out at the creatures that held me, biting and scratching, clawing at their eyes. For a moment, I felt the grip loosen, and I swam with all my might toward the surface. I broke through the water, gasping for air, and saw that I was surrounded by a horde of slimy, wriggling creatures. They reached out with their tentacles, pulling me back down into the depths. I screamed and fought, but it was no use. The darkness closed in around me, and I knew that I was lost. As I lay dying in the abyss, I realized that I had been foolish to chase the water's call. I had been lured here by something ancient and malevolent, and now I was paying the ultimate price. The water had called to me, and I had answered with my life.